What was your initial reaction to the actions of the protesters, those then who obviously went beyond the pale? And would you describe it as insurrection or something else?
I don't know if it's insurrection, Jeff, or not, but it certainly was sad and embarrassing and cannot be tolerated in this country. I've served in that body for 12 years, and I served with people from both sides of the aisle from all across America. And that's where we do the business of democracy. And that cannot be interfered with. And it hasn't been in 200 plus years of this country. And I spoke to a good friend of mine, Dr. Brad Winstrup, who is from Ohio and in the Congress, serves on the Intel Committee and on the Ways and Means Committee. Just got off the phone with him. And he's in his office. I asked about how he was doing. I talked to several of my friends, texted a bunch of my staff members to make sure everyone was okay. And everyone is fine. But they lock themselves in their offices basically. And the way the voting takes place now, it's been much different since COVID, is that we mask up and we go in, and you go in by alphabet. So unfortunately, being an R, I go at the end of the alphabet, and you go and vote and leave the floor. So there are never many people on the House floor at any one time. So that actually was a godsend, really. And I want to say this about the Capitol Hill Police. I know many of them. I walk by them every day, many of them for 12 years, men and women who work there, and I wave at them, say hello, sometimes really early in the morning, sometimes really late at night. And it put tremendous stress on those folks. And I think they showed great restraint today. I'm surprised there weren't more people. I heard, unfortunately, one person died, but it could have been much, much worse.
So the next question would be President Trump. He told the people in a brief statement to go home, but he spent more time really in that brief statement continuing to insist the election was stolen. And he told the protesters that they were special and that he loved them. Your response to his response?
Look, the president has to lead, and we can't have an assault on the White House, on the Senate, the House, or the Capitol of this country. And not only should they go home, they should stand down and go home now. Look, I put a uniform on 40 plus years ago, as many men and women have done in this country's history, to protect that place. And it's a sacred place, and it's where we all, we're governed. Every 2 years we have an election in the House, every 6 in the Senate, every 4 for the presidency. And that's the way we've done for over 230 years in this country. And we need to peacefully, hand power off 2 weeks from today.
Do you think that your colleagues, your former colleagues rather, who had plans to object to states beyond Arizona, should go forward at this point, and why or why not?
I think there are questions about this election. I think you have in Pennsylvania, for instance, apparently without going to the legislature, which is what their constitution says you have to do, they changed state election laws. But regardless, that election was certified. And I think it does need to be looked into. Look, I think we have to have confidence, Jeff, in elections. And I want to say this for me personally. 15 elections I ran, 14-1. Okay. I lost one, I won the other 14. And the problem with it was the good part about it was I always trusted the vote. I never questioned that here. In the first congressional district, whatever the numbers were, they were. And I never worried about any wrongdoing and malfeasance or anything. But the American people have to have confidence in that. And I think to look at it is fine, but you're not going to delay that right now. That's not going to happen. We're going to certify the electors. And I think tonight, I talked to my colleagues just on the floor just moments ago, and I think they're going to reconvene tonight.
Yeah, I had certainly heard that they wanted to, that many of them really, really wanted to. And in that vein, what's the best path forward for Congress, including your successor, Diana Harshbarger, for ratcheting back the deep divisions in the country after this?
I think we have to show that we can. Look, it's fine to have great differences philosophically. I'll give you an example. I worked with Donna Shalala, who was President Clinton's HHS director, very closely for 2 years on surprise medical billing. We could not have been any further apart on abortion or other things. but we didn't. Where we agreed, we got together, we worked together, and people are still doing that. A lot of that you don't believe by seeing on television a lot, but that goes on a lot in the country. We're very divided, and I think what everybody now has to say, okay, let's respect everyone's opinion. And I think if you look at, and I'm not defending this at all, believe me, I was saddened and embarrassed by what happened. But you saw in the national press a completely different treatment of the Antifa and the people that tried to burn Washington down. I mean, I got where I wouldn't walk to work. I like to walk, as you know, and hike and so forth. And I quit doing that after the riots and everything up there because I was worried about my safety and my wife's safety.
You say, at some point earlier, you said this isn't who we are. I mean, I guess to some extent, though, this is who we are because it just happened. And I want to know if you think that President Trump deserves any blame whatsoever for what took place today.
No, I think he does. And look, it's not who most of the American people are that I know. I was around today in the 1st Congressional District, and let me tell you what the most important thing that happened to me today, which tells you how appreciative I personally am for having represented these great people. They called, they texted, they emailed to find out, am I okay? Now that tells you what kind of people you represent, and not what's going on, but, hey, Phil, are you okay? And that meant a lot to me personally, even though I said, no, I'm perfectly okay. I'm right here at my home in Johnson City.
Are you honestly shocked that this happened, or did you, like I did, worry? And I'm talking about last night, even about the possibility of such activity, knowing in advance about the rally, or did you have at least a nagging worry that something like this, maybe not to this scale, would happen today?
I didn't. I really, this caught me off guard, and I'll tell you, and it obviously caught the folks in DC off guard, because typically when you see these, they end up being a very peaceful. There are people and they have every right to do that. People have a right to peacefully protest in America. That's what we are. I mean, it's guaranteed to peacefully assemble. That's not guaranteed. And people who broke windows and broke into the place and so forth should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But I've seen these protesters. I mean, we walk through them all the time, and it's a fairly usual event. This was not. This was beyond anything I've seen. I've seen the night that the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, was passed, there were probably 20,000 people outside the Capitol at midnight, but they were peaceful. We went out, talked to them, and they went home. And that's what I expected this to be a rally, and that people would go on and leave and go home.
So, final word, and that is just your recommendation to the people of the 1st District on how to try to approach the next year, really, in this deep country.
We're dealing with a pandemic. Many people have lost their jobs under a lot of stress right now. And I think you're seeing some of that reflected in behavior. And people think, rightfully or wrong, I don't know the answer to it, whether there was enough voter manipulation to change an election. The people in those states said not, and that's what we have to deal. That's what we have to believe and move on. Just like I do in the state of Tennessee. I accepted the results of every election that I was voted on. We're going to be fine in this country. I believe that. We're Americans. We come together, and I'm more optimistic. I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel for COVID. We've got a miraculous thing that happened, which was the development of the safe and effective vaccines within a year. That's never happened in the history of the world. And Americans led that. And again, we can see the end of the tunnel. I was at the hospital today for a little bit, and at Johnson City Medical Center, and the folks there are working so hard, the staff and everything, under really some tough conditions, but they're upbeat. And I think this vaccine has really put a bounce in their step. They're beginning to see maybe we can get a hold of this thing. So we've got that, get our people back to work, and get the Congress back to work. And I think we can do that, Jeff, and we should.
All right. Well, Congressman Roe, thank you for talking with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff, and be safe.
Thanks.